Hi, just to say again, I'm Fiona. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Innovate Communities, and I'm here in the Zoom room, as we call it, with my colleague Tom, who you're all familiar with now. So I'm delighted to be here with you this afternoon, so thank you for the invite. So before we actually go into the presentation, I'd like to give you a bit of background to start with about me and my journey. So prior to setting up Innovate Communities, I was actually a CEO of a local development company in Ballymun. Some of you may remember that local development company. And unfortunately, this company lost its main funding through a political decision. Basically, it was to reduce the number of local development companies in Dublin. And as you can imagine, it was incredibly frustrating at the time and very disappointing for the local community and for the staff involved. So I decided, I suppose, to do what any budding entrepreneur would do and look at the situation as an opportunity. There was some positive to come out of it. And I used the structure of the local development company to build on the passion and the interest I had in the area of social innovation. I was really keen to improve the services and develop new projects and new services and new businesses in Ballymun, basically with the community, for the community, in the hope that it actually add some social and economic value and overall strengthen the capacity of the local people involved. So really, to cut a long story short, I rebranded the local development company in 2015, and then in 2016, Innovate Communities was born. So around about 5 years on, from then, we've learned a significant amount about how social innovation actually works. More to the point, how it doesn't, and it's always good to reflect on why things don't work too. And personally, and now as a team of 8, we have built up great tacit knowledge through the research and practice that we've done, leading us to look at the next 5 years of our work. So building both social infrastructure and communities as well as social projects. So we know, I suppose, well, we will be using this knowledge to inform and advise government on the future of community development in Ireland, which is really exciting. And we'll work as part of the committee of the EU Social Innovation Competency Centre that will be coming down the line shortly. So Tom, have you the slides up and running?
I'm now furiously looking for it.
That's okay.
Now, okay, we're on.
Wonderful. Okay. So, Tom, second slide then, please. So for the next 15 minutes or so, give or take how fast we talk or not, Tom and I will outline a bit about the company, our vision for social innovation, essentially why we're looking at place-based community innovation, what makes a generative community, and why we think Dublin 8 has the amazing potential for this, what social innovation might look like in Dublin 8, and how together, and I emphasize together, we can actually make this happen. Next slide, please, Tom. So the company, as I said, was originally, well, the local development company was established way back in 1995. And as I mentioned, we were reborn and rebranded as Innovate Communities in 2016. So for those of you who don't know us, at Innovate Communities, essentially, we work to support local communities, basically as citizens, organizations, businesses, politicians in a particular geographic location, simply to implement their ideas for change. That's it. So this can be anything from setting up a new community space, such as a social innovation hub, to building the capacity of a community around planning and engagement with the local authority. The first community that we worked in, as you know, was Ballymun, and we used design thinking and other creative engagement tools to identify issues important to the people that live there. And at this specific time, things that were coming up with a lack of space for building community projects, a lack of space for setting up businesses, the requirement for more joined up supports for both social entrepreneurs, and then facilitating youth to believe in themselves and realize their full potential. And that came across quite strongly in the engagement that we had. So each challenge was advanced basically with all the relevant stakeholders working together. And again, working together was the key. And one of the main projects, now businesses, as you know, that came out of that initial consultation and engagement was the Social Innovation Hub in Ballymun. Now, the hub wasn't just a co-working space, but it was a space where the community could come and highlight their ongoing issues and work through them with our team. And through doing that, quite a few impactful projects were designed with the community for the community. You may be familiar with Inspire. Elaine is part of the Corn group, and it's a youth mentoring program. Elaine's delivering it. And it's basically where a professional from a community such as Ballymon or the Liberties comes in and supports a young person from the same community to develop them and to plan their next future, into the steps into education or into employment, whatever the needs of the young person at the time are. Incubate for Growth is another one. So it's a mentoring and physical space access program for people on the Back to Work Enterprise Allowance. And then the Youth Academy is a program that supports 18 to 25-year-olds to realize their skill sets and the application of these skills into the real world. So each of these projects were designed as prototypes, and they were tested and refined, and each are now being scaled into other communities, but importantly adapted to meet the needs of those communities and the people within them. We don't just copy and paste. It has to actually be rooted in the needs of that community. So to do this, we partner with a whole host of wonderful organizations and people from government, multinationals, charities, nonprofits, from the likes of LinkedIn to the Princess Trust in the UK. The model for the Social Innovation Hub was successful, and it was impactful, creating jobs, businesses, and supporting youth motivation, efficacy, and confidence. And this is really what DCC was interested in. And then they approached us as Innovate Communities to bring this model to Dublin 8, to actually look at implementing a space for creativity, a space for programs for the local community, as I've described, and also looking at a network, pulling a network together of stakeholders to work through the issues in the community to ensure that positive impact is actually made in the community, tackling the issues of tomorrow, today. And this was what Innovate Communities went about developing. But in doing so, we had to develop something that was fit for purpose for D8 and the D8 community. And to do this, we actually had begun to immerse ourselves in the D8 community, and we've done so over the last 3 to 4 or 5 months. So just taking you to late last year, and then I'll hand over to Tom. I did employ the wonderful genius that is Tom Doyle. And Tom's role as a Social Innovation Manager was to basically bring the Liberties Social Innovation Hub to full operation fruition, which, as you can imagine and know from your own work, this is no easy task. And to support us with our work, we began to further learn about, I suppose, put into practice new tools and approaches to deliver improved social innovation in communities, building on what we had done in Ballymon. And we've done this through working on an MIT program in the US. So Tom, myself, and others from our own team, and a few people from the Core Network were actually part of, and some part of the learning and the process of the last few months. And as part of Tom's part, he's going to detail what we've learned in the ULAB program, and then how we were actually starting to apply it in Dublin 8. So basically working towards discovering what the Liberties Social Innovation Hub will deliver for you and will deliver for the wider Dublin 8 community. So I will now hand over to Tom, and he's going to talk about our vision for social innovation. So thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Now, I don't know about genius, but what I do hope to share is essentially what Fiona has summarised in terms of her experience of social innovation in Ballymon, and a bit about the ULAB programme, and also the experience I've had with working with members of the community in Dublin 8 over the last 6 months. So social innovation, as you know, is kind of a buzzword now, even at European policy level. In academic circles, there's a huge literature. It's described in terms of a global movement, a solution to addressing the big issues of our time in terms of environment and economic inequality, etc. But our sort of vision for it is very local, very bottom up, and very focused on what communities can do to address the issues in their own community. So the key words here, shared impulse. Even if you do have institutional entrepreneurs or social entrepreneurs, their main skill is to enlist other people and to get other people on board to tackle a local based issue, which, if it's successful, can sometimes mark a path to resolving more general social problems. Key things that we see is that a social innovation challenges existing ways of doing things, and the exclusion of those most affected by change, which often happens in relation to social change and top-down initiatives to address issues like poverty or whatever it might be. You know, the existing way of doing that, I love that phrase, but the Brazilian philosopher who says, you know, we should not have to live under the dictatorship of no alternative. There always is an alternative, and there always is another way of doing things. The second bullet point there below is change for good with and within the community. That the process of social innovation is as important as the output. The fact that it actually involves people actively involved in changing their own community. So for us, effective social innovation looks like this. It looks where people actually come together to challenge what's happening now. And they take the time and effort to create new knowledge and new insight as to what's happening in a particular social field. And there's a lot of tools and techniques that we learned in the ULab process and from based on our experience in the past of data with social that helps in that process. But really the key to it is that people are open to new knowledge and a new awareness of what's going on. And that means letting go of old mental models and that will enable some alternative story. I think it was Austin who used that phrase, that a lot of his work is helping people in Dublin 8 tell a different story about themselves. And I think that's a great description of what social innovation is about. And it is learned by doing. It's not an analysis by paralysis by analysis, or it's not about writing reports. It is about actually trying things on the ground, working with people on new ideas, and then sharing the learning at a higher level. The ULab project is a project that's run, as Fiona mentioned, by the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. About 280 teams from all over the world were involved in this on their own, each on their own social innovation project in the world of environmental care, tackling poverty, business governance, a whole range of issues. Now, it's based on a theory called Theory U, written by Otto Scharmer. Some of you may or may not be familiar with it. That provides kind of a language of social innovation and change, and a whole sort of set of techniques and tools. But I think one of the things I would say about social innovation, it's sometimes equated with these tools, you know, design thinking and brainstorming and future search and all of these sort of techniques that are used to enable people to converse more effectively. But really the two important things about social innovation are that people enter with a strong commitment to change, not just the system, but themselves. And that's really that change begins with ourselves individually and collectively. And in Theory U language, it says people have to enter the change process, open mind, that they're open to different ideas, open heart to be able to feel and experience what other people feel, and an open will to actually try different things. And the second point is that you start where the community is now. I mean, the first thing I did when I got this job was I read the SICTA report on where the Liberties is at the moment. And that's a rich source of information on, you know, how people are experiencing life in Dublin 8 at the moment. Again, in Theory U language, to talk about seeing and sensing the field. And really that involves getting to the point where you talk to people at a different level about their experience in the area. And you find out such things as, you know, what's the level of connectedness or relatedness that exists in a community, the old-fashioned neighborliness, or the degree to which people share a social space like clubs or pubs or whatever it might be, the sense of purpose that exists. You know, do people have a common idea of where they'd like Dublin 8 to go? Obviously, the place like the Liberties has a strong sense of place, and it has a strong sense of its history. And I think an awareness of the gifts it has in terms of the human talent that exists in the area and the natural sort of physical environment that exists in one of the most historic areas of Dublin. And most important, I think, in terms of social innovation is that people have a sense of ownership in a community of the future, that they have not a dependency outlook, but that they feel that they can control and will control the future of their community. And I think, based on my experience of these meetings and my experience of talking to various stakeholders over the last few months, all of these sort of qualities of rootedness, self-awareness, and more recently, a much more diverse population, I think are real ingredients for social innovation. And I think the fact that this network exists is a recognition that there is a need for a more, what we call, collective impact, that working together, that we can achieve more rather than pursuing independent agendas. And we hope that the Social Innovation Hub can help in that challenge. And I think we did some work with Orla and Kathleen. We did use some techniques in ULab, and one of the things we sort of detected was a kind of a weariness with some of the issues that we're trying to face, and that maybe some fresh thinking can help. Now, I hasten to add that is not the new Social Innovation Hub you're looking at on the right. It'll be a much more modest affair when it gets going, but we will have hopefully a welcoming space and a space that would enable people to convene, come up with good ideas, and when they get those ideas, the workspace, the desk space, whatever it is, to take that idea to a point where it can be scaled either as a social enterprise or a community-based initiative. One of the other things that we're looking at is that some kind of virtual space where people can interact as well and be supported in community innovation activities. Fiona talked about the kind of programs that we have at the moment. One area, I won't go over that again, but one area that I have a special interest in is capacity building of individuals for social innovation, because I think that's very important. And the model, was it Suzanne Maria was the name of the person from Aintus last time?
Suzanne Kyle, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. I was really, that charter that she showed for community education is really a template for social innovation. And I think it's something that would really be worth exploring in Dublin 8. And then again, as Fiona mentioned, part of our role is that the whole metaphor of a hub is, where ideas and people come together and then radiate outwards. There's a whole sort of network of social innovation at European level, at national level, and hopefully now increasingly at local level, and that the Social Innovation Hub would help people make connections with sources of knowledge, sources of funding, whatever is required. So where do we go from here? We're anticipating a long journey. Social innovation is not an overnight activity. And also, it's not a theoretical activity. You really learn by doing. So projects like the Reimagine Marshalsea project is an example of how you start to work with the community on issues that matter. And then, of course, to get the hub up and running, we hope to have the architect on site within the next few weeks. And then there's the usual planning permission. But all going well, there will be a sound of construction work in the Social Innovation Hub in the next few months. And of course, last but not least, we'd love to hear from yourselves. Tell us what you want in terms of what you think social innovation might achieve and how a Social Innovation Hub can help. So that's all I have to say for the moment. Happy to answer any questions now, or if people want to contact us individually, feel free. Thank you very much.